Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. More, hate less, read comics. It's Blake's Buzz Live.
Buzz, buzz, babies.
All right, buzz, buzz, babies, and this is the fourth show in a row. You've all seen me this week. I hope you're not tired of me yet, because I'm not tired of you all, because I love you. Thank you for tuning in. This episode, I almost said this week, but it's been this episode. I've got a very talented guest here. Stephan Franck is in the house. He's got a very, very, very cool Kickstarter going on for the Palomino, which is some very awesome neo-noir 80s hard-boiled crime mystery explosion shotgun having good ass time that I hope you all check out on Kickstarter. It is so I got to read it and every page blew my mind. The pull quotes of which there are many talented individuals, one of which is Jimmy Palmiotti. I think Bill Sinkovich said some good stuff about it. He's got a wide berth of very talented comic people praising this book, and the hype pays off, ladies and gentlemen. Stephan, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, Blake. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh man, I'm happy to have you. I was I try really hard anytime Superfan hits me up. I always try to say yes, because they're good people, and even sometimes if I'm not familiar with who they're bringing me, it always ends up being a winner. And again, like the formula, it never fails. Like they sent me your book and I took a look at it and I was like, yes, I want to talk to this guy. Like, I love noir fiction. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it even more in comic books. It's such a fun genre, which is weird to say because it's always so like kind of dark and sad and brutal. And like, you know, I guess I'm a weirdo for saying like, that's fun for me, but it really is. And you do it so well. The Palomino belongs in the, like, I mean, it reminds me 100 Bullets. It reminds me of Reckless and everything Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips are putting out right now. It is all. There's a bug on my neck. I was freaking me out.
No, thank you so much, man. You mentioned Sean Phillips. I was just tweeting back and forth with him this morning. He just found the book and just backed it this morning. So there you go.
Nice. See? Yeah. The greats know the greats. Like, that's awesome, man. How'd that feel? Were you geeking out?
One of his work, and as you said, talk about noir. I mean, he does noir. Like,
yeah,
it's nobody's business, So
now, we mentioned in the green room our mutual friend Charlie Stickney. When I was talking about how excited I was to talk to you about this book, he was like, "Oh yeah, Google him, look him up on IMDb." And you have a very impressive and healthy career in Hollywood animation, right? Now, how does that translate into comic books? Like, obviously your art is amazing. The colors in this book are insanely special. Like, it's so beautiful, and the way you play with like sunsets and the reds and the blues and the nightlife and the wonderful club scenes, and just the colors like breathe even more life into this crime fiction, which is heavily laced with a bit of music history too. There's a lot going on, but how do you go from like making the movies to making comic books? Like, where did that transition happen?
It was there from the beginning. Like, I've been doing comics and animation since I was 6 years old, literally, and my parents had a store where I grew up, and they were selling comics and stuff. And so I grew up in there, reading every single comic that was coming through the store, and that was super amazing. So, I was always doing that stuff, and also this, animation, and the two of them together. And when I was 13 years old, I saw and like I was 6 years old, I was trying to animate like Tintin's rocket taking off or Spider-Man swinging, So it's always been the same thing for me. And especially when I saw the movie Heavy Metal when I was 13, it was oh my, it was France, right? So there you see Heavy Metal at 13, and I was like, yes, but to me, it was like that combination of those two art forms that, to me, you know, it's like having, it's the same family, two
Yeah.
siblings in the same family. It'd be a shame if they didn't get along, you know. And so then, after I went to school for animation and graduated, and then at that point, animation was really blowing up, because it was like I started college the fall after Who Framed Roger Rabbit had just come out,
Hmm.
and that completely changed animation. Went from like pretty much a dying art form
Yeah.
to like the stuff of Blockbuster. So that gave me the opportunity to have like a really great career in animation, which is still going on right now. I mean, like, I worked on movies like Iron Giant, for instance, where I was a supervising animator on that. You mentioned Space Jam earlier. That was a fun thing. But and currently, I'm directing new episodes of What If for Marvel, and then
Yeah.
so I'm, again, comics and animation going together, right? So that's kind of what I've been chasing my whole life. But then about 10 years ago, I was like, yes, but let's not forget, you also want to do the comics.
Hmm.
And so I got into it. I started with my first series called Silver. And at the time, I was like, I made the decision. Oh, there it is. Oh, look at this. So this is the beautiful hardcover that
Yeah.
we're doing with Abrams Comic Arts.
It's a
So
it's a it's a it's a thick it's a thick boy too. Like there's a lot. Unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of time to dive into this because I ordered it and it just it just showed up. So,
yeah.
but yeah, don't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, this
Oh,
is a
no, no,
beautiful
please.
book too.
Yeah.
Which as well, we'll pull up your campaign page here in a minute, but you can get this as an add-on, and you can even pre-order the upcoming volume 2, which is coming
Yeah.
out in the fall.
That's right.
Through the campaign, which is very cool.
That's right. Yeah, we so when I started doing comics, I really wanted complete autonomy creatively, in every possible way. So I started my own publishing company, Dark Planet Comics.
Mm-hmm.
And so we released the Silver books and the prequel Rosalind and all that stuff, ourselves through Dark Planet. And then at some point, when you reach a certain level of distribution, that just then you need to bring in like people who have the ability to get broader and stuff like that. And we talked to a lot of people, and like Abrams, I love that group. They're so awesome, they're so into it, and they make some just really beautiful books. And so those hardcovers I love, because we learned so much. Because unlike I'm so glad you mentioned the colors for Palomino. We can talk about that later. But for Silver is a black and white book, because it's a pulp noir kind of adventure in the 30s. So the idea was to take a style that was kind of, in a way, puts you there immediately, and does tip the hat to the adventure strips of the 1930s, but to do it in a way that feels modern, completely modern, and kind of radical and stuff like that. And so it's not an easy format to publish, because black and white can be tricky, can feel, you don't want it to feel like it's a book that's missing its color. It needs to feel like a complete statement that stands super strongly on its own.
Yeah.
And we learned and that everything factors in, from the paper you use, the tint of the white, the color, the type of black, everything is a factor. And boy, with Abrams, we worked so hard on those editions, and to me, they're like the perfect edition.
It's a beautiful book, and I also nerd it. I love it. I love like thicker page weights. Like I appreciate that. Like, I like a heavier book, and I love deluxe hardcovers. The dust jacket for this is gorgeous, and then when you peel the dust jacket off, there's the great black and white art behind it.
Oh yeah, the case is cool. Yeah,
I won't lie, Stephan. I was cut because the colors from Palomino blew me away so much. Like it's just like so moody and absorbing, and like just my eyes fell in love with every page. When I got this and initially opened up and I saw it was black and white, I had like a half a beat of being like, oh,
Yeah.
but I have like my thoughts on black and white comics are very different now because I've got into manga a lot and I
Mm,
love it.
yeah.
But I love your art, and this is like, you can really appreciate the line work that you do, right? And there's nothing to hide behind, right?
Yeah.
There's none of those colors. Like, it's very like raw and visceral and like right there, and the starkness against the white. It's just like it pops in a different way, like Palomino does with colors, and that kind of like was very intriguing to me, like how both of them work simultaneously in the same regard in totally different ways. All of it comes down to you're just a damn good artist. And what's even more aggravating about you is you're a damn good writer too. Like, it's not fair. It's not fair when you guys do this, when you can just do everything yourself, and you live your rock star artist writer lives, leaving the rest of us behind. But no, it's truly impressive work, and there's not a lot like this on Kickstarter. I feel like, like noir. I feel like a lot of main noir comics like come out in the direct market, and there's like the icons, right? I compared you to like Azzarello, and with 100, it's got like a great 100 bullets vibe. It feels a lot like like I said, what Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips are doing right now. I mean, also with Sean's son, like Jacob Phillips and Chris Condon with their like Texas noir, that Texas blood, like, it's a hard place to get into. I feel like a lot of people are hesitant to be like, I'm going to make a noir comic because, like, oh shit, the ones that are out are so good, right?
Yeah.
But you come right out and you wedge yourself into that genre, and you dig your heels into the dirt. And you're like, I'm here and I'm staying here and I'm making a name for myself.
Well,
And
yeah.
it's perfect. Like, I love it. I'm so glad like I got to read the whole thing, which is it's very cool that like everything's done. Like, well, volume 3's mainly, it's your first pass is done, right? Like, art's done and some, but
Well,
right,
yeah.
like you're
So,
pretty close.
I think the I think it's possible that the advanced copy, that you got,
Yeah.
actually has volume 2 and 3
Yeah.
into the same file.
Yeah.
So, if you arrive to that big moment at the end, that I'm not gonna
Oh
spoil.
my, the narratively explosive moment. I'll say yes.
That is correct. So that's the end of the third volume, and
Okay.
then there's one more volume to come to complete the story.
Okay.
To me, like the thing, the first, thank you so much for the kind words, but also I think, especially when you're tackling a genre like this, and it's just like, what you don't want is to become false. Artistically speaking, it's true and everything, but especially when it's a genre that can so easily become a cliche, and then it feels like false and derivative. And I think the reason why I think what elevates the story is it is L.A. noir, like you love it, but but everything in it is except for the crime aspect, everything else is lived in the sense that it's neo-noir, right? Because it's not the guys in fedora in the 40s. It is the country music clubs of Los Angeles in 1981. The Palomino used to be a real club that existed. That was a legendary music place in LA, right? So all that stuff is real. I'm a musician myself, played the clubs for many years until a few years ago, from the time that I was a kid, literally to just a few years ago. So that's also live done already well. A lot of the musicians of the Palomino, by the time I arrived in LA, the club was closed, but all the musicians were still around, and I worked with them in other situations and stuff. And so all that stuff feels very true. And then it's noir. So yes, it's your grimy, gritty LA noir thing, To Live and Die in LA, whatever, like a Heat, that kind of vibe. But also, it's very lived in. It's by way of Altman, if you will, right? Where it's like that father-daughter story where he's like this super hard-boiled kind of guy, and he's got this teenage daughter, and she's even more hard-boiled than he is, and together they're hilarious combination, and they're keeping each other in check, and it's not clear which one of the two is getting the most out of control and which one needs to worry about which one and stuff. So I think it's using noir as it's just like playing the blues. It's 12 bars. You know what I mean? So you're playing the 12 bars, but you're doing something that is completely unique, completely honest. And you're just chasing like, hey, I have a story to tell with this thing. It's my story, and it's a lot of it is based in life, you know. And then like the format becomes just the like the wrapping paper of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that what's kind of otherwise, yes, you would fall back into something that feels artificial, you know.
Yeah, I definitely feel the like there's a lot of humanness in it, and the father daughter narrative adds a great bit of tenderness even from these hard boiled characters, right? Like these you know, they're both very broken, dealing with the death of a wife and a mother, and still not. They have a good relationship, but it's tense still, right? Like there's still some tension in between the father and daughter. There's a little bit of distrust, but that's good, right? We get that narrative tension between the two of them that you know makes us want to like keep turning the pages, and then the tension ramps up when we meet these, you know, seedier characters, right? And then there's a great murder mystery on top of everything, and then also just the music bit. Like I thought. It doesn't feel clustered either. Like there's a lot of moving parts, but like you said, like it makes this livable, breathable, lived in experience that just, it feels real. You know, it doesn't necessarily feel like pulp fiction, like pulp noir.
Right.
And so it's very impressive how you did that. And again, like, and that's just like your writing part, you know. And then when you take a look, like the art is so great, and you have these like big sweeping splash pages. It's very cinematic. Like there's, you know, I love that you don't do a lot of dialogue unless you really need it, you know. So it's like you cruise through the pages in a good way, right? And you're just it's like a great movie, and it just you're so absorbed in the narrative for the whole time. It's very hard. I found it hard to put down. And when I had to, like if my dog needed outside, or if I was like reading it before like another show, I was like mad about it. I was like, fuck, I want to finish the, you know, like leave me alone. I got shit to do. I'm in this world and I don't want to leave it. And yeah, I can't say good enough things about it. I guess what we really need to do is give everybody a quick little look at it. Cause it's, you know, I can say a lot. I'm a talker, right? But this is a visual like experience on top of a great story. So like, let's go ahead and take a look at the campaign here. I mean, yeah, these club scenes, and that was one of the things that I was going to ask you is like, where did the music come from and the culture? But then you mentioned like you were in it. Like, what were you playing? What'd you jam out with?
Guitar.
Nice. I used to play bass, but I never stuck with it. And now I'm 37 and I'm like, man, if I would have just stuck with it, I would have been a pretty good bass player.
Yeah.
And you know, like what got me, I went to private school my whole life. Right. And when I was taking bass lessons at the school, like after school, they were teaching me how to play church music. And I was like, I want to play Tool songs. I don't want to play like church music. And so that was one of the reasons why I just didn't stick with it. And I was just a little asshole who didn't want to do anything anyone told me and play video games. But anyways, but yeah, so yeah, these big, the club scenes are great. I love the heavy inks and the darkness, you know, and like I said, that's the stuff you do with colors, man. And how like expressive your characters are too, because I feel like sometimes in noir, like everybody is I don't want to say flat, because that's not right, but they come off as like blue steel, emotionless, like everybody's a slab of granite, right? And it's so hard to like penetrate them and like get to know who they are and see what's behind this, you know, like behind, like within their identity, so to say. And you don't have that problem. Like these characters are very rich, and they're like, I want to explore them more, you know. It's the daughter especially, like she is a gem, and I'm very interested to see her role in the fourth and final
Yeah,
volume.
well,
I feel like she's going to have a big
she
part.
does. She does. So
Nice.
you'll enjoy that. Yeah. It's absolutely true what you're saying. Like, it's to me the noir characters, that sort of cynicism and whatever that they have,
Yeah.
it's an armor. So what's interesting is under the armor, right? And it's like how
Yes.
they're conflicted about everything, right? Like, I always think of noir characters as people who are like extremely idealistic, who have this kind of burning sense of justice, so burning that it hurts. And it would be so much easier and more convenient for them if they could just not give a shit, except they can't help themselves,
Yeah.
you know? And so their relation, it's only in their relationship with stuff like, his relationship with being a parent, his relationship with music, his relationship with being an investigator, which comes with everything comes with a lot of baggage. So it's not like he feels a certain way about one thing. It's just like they have these very complex, multidimensional personalities,
Mm-hmm.
and every single dimension is fraught with its own sort of, gray areas, right? And of course, like, the way that they put it across is they have this kind of wicked sense of humor.
Yeah.
And the thing that one of the cliches that you can very easily fall into or end up relying too much on, to me, is a voiceover, right? And it's funny because Silver was a very there's a lot of voiceover in Silver,
Okay.
which is you don't often see in a big adventure, but you kind of do need it because it's a heist story. So there's a lot of, okay, what's really happening here is this and stuff like that. So you need to help orient the audience through the story moments, to make sure they never get lost. Because that's my biggest thing is, as you said, I'm just trying make sure that no one ever get lost in my stories.
Okay.
So, but for this one, what I knew that I was going to do, like a noir kind of detective slash musician by night story and stuff, like, I was like, okay, what's the first thing you would typically do? A voiceover. So what is the one thing that I'm not going to do is a voiceover, because that way it forces it forces the characters to reveal themselves and to exist through their actions and through the stuff that they're of course, their expressions, and through what they're actually saying. Whether they mean it or not, that's a different story, but you don't have the extra help. So it really keeps you on your toes to keep the character completely true in that sense, right? Because you can't course correct with like a dose of voiceover.
Okay. Okay. I like that. I stopped on this panel here because this was one of my favorite moments of the graphic novel, and there's many favorite moments, but this is one of the best fight scenes I've seen in a comic book. And now I love my X-Men and DC and Big Two stuff, and I love indies, right? And there's all, like in superhero books, we get these big action scenes, we get all this. This was one of those brutal, and it's all in a little bar bathroom. There's not much space. Doors are breaking, sinks are breaking, water spraying everywhere. There's guns bouncing around on the floor. So intense, and like,
it goes on for 10 pages.
yeah, I had to like, I had to go back. Because I was like, because there's not a lot of it's just panel progression, right, and some sound effects, and then I had to like finish the fight, and then I had to go back and because I went through too fast, and I was like, I gotta like the art, like I didn't have time to like I was following the blows and wanted to see how it ended up, but I had to go backwards and then like really appreciate like what you did, and it was such a great moment, and like just the way you control tension throughout these. So like I read volume 1 through 3 to get prepped for this, and like it's so perfect, and like you're really talented with how you like structured and laid this out, and just nothing like no weak moments, like everything's there for a reason, which also adds to this mystery. Like I missed when you guys do like murder mysteries and stuff, it always impresses me because you have to you have to give your audience enough information to keep going, right? And you got to give them, you have to control that information in such a meticulous way. And so like you give us these breadcrumbs to follow, but you can't give us too many breadcrumbs, right? And then, and where we get like how the murder turns into like, I won't spoil it, but like what's in that, we're looking for this briefcase. When we find out what's in the briefcase, like, and like the whole other, and then the office scene. Oh, like one of a phenomenal cliffhanger. There actually, that's a lie. So this is my second favorite scene from this book, but the real favorite one we can't really show you because that's like the climactic amazing moment in volume 3. But it's just so. And then here's some of like those colors I'm talking about, like this blending of like, dusk and sunset, and just like the murderous red hue that falls over this music bar where they're like, we play these gigs, and God, this dude and his teeth and the amphetamines.
So much of this is based on true stories that I can't.
Oh wow! So you saw some like weird shit when you're gigging around as a musician. Like you got into some weirdness.
Weird shit, but other people saw a lot more weird shit than me, and then.
I loved this too. Like these are some of these big, massive splash pages that just like really put you in a scene, and it does. It feels like you're watching a movie. Like it's just like it. You're part of this. You're at that illegal gambling table in this scene, and just man. And then here's the shotgun bit. Oh, just so many great moments in this book, and like I said, like your character designs, like moments like these moments like are so human, right? And so real, and just like how you manipulate us with like everybody from like making us feel like happy and sad to lost and confused to kind of terrified, and like we're getting attached to these characters, and it feels like no one's safe, which we kind of find out they aren't. So like,
right. What's funny too is the city really has become a character.
Yeah.
And especially the valley, because where I've been living, been here for 30 years, and when my youngest daughter was, she was away at college when I was doing the first book, and I sent her a couple of pages, and she was like, "Dad, your book's making me homesick."
Oh, wow.
And
that's a compliment.
Like I had sort of captured like a little bit of that vibe of the living here, of what the town is,
Yeah. Very cool. So yeah, you get these. These are three, like, well, kind of like a volume 1, 2, and 3. They each run about 3 issues, like deluxe sized issues though, so they're bigger. So this is like, you get a lot of story here. So I mean, you're gonna get these. You get these three trades. You can get them digital, and then here we get into the silver. So as I showed off the hardcover earlier, you can get that right now. Volume 2's coming out in October, which I'm pretty excited for, and now I have to complete the set, right? There's no other way. And then there's Rosalind too, and Rosalind was is a prequel to all this, not to Palomino, but to Silver.
To Silver, yeah. So actually, if you go up to the covers, so you see this. So Silver, for those who don't know what it's about, is it's a story that takes place in the noir pulp era of the 1930s. We're in 1931, and you have this group of con men who team up with this woman who's a vampire hunter to steal precious silver from a castle full of vampires. Like, what could possibly go wrong with that plan? So it's a big pulp adventure, like a big Indiana Jonesy, but in a world that is very kind of, I call it the meta world of pulp, that we're inside of, and it's this really thick world of adventure. And when in the world that was kind of pre Google Earth, if you know what I mean, like a mysterious world, and so this vampire hunter, her full name is Rosalind Van Helsing, and she's the last of the Van Helsing, and she's the granddaughter of the one Van Helsing that you know.
Okay.
And as I was when I was working on the like 2/3 into so it was the third, because those two hardcovers used to be 4 trades. So that's when I was around trade number 3. There was just enough of her backstory so that, which is what we need for Silver, within the scope of Silver. But then that backstory started to grow and grow, and it became this thing that I absolutely, oh, that's the case you are talking about. Became this thing that I absolutely had to tell, and it became Rosalind, which is not a regular comic. It presents itself differently, and it's
Yeah, it's like this is
like
it, right?
this.
Kind
Yeah.
of text and
It's her diary as a child.
Okay, that's interesting.
So it's so whereas Silver is more like a big adventure pulp story with supernatural elements, this one is more horror because it has to do more about the lore of the Van Helsings and vampires and all that stuff. And so it's very gritty, but at the same time it's baked through the eyes of a child, because she's the one who experienced it and remembered it and put it in this journal. So it's her voice and her fragments of memory, and so it reads as a very linear story, like beginning, middle, and end. You totally get, as you were saying with the other stories, you totally follow the story and you're in it, but the presentation is completely unique.
Okay. Now, is it? I just noticed that. I thought it is Rosalind. Like, if I buy this on your website, is it a hardcover too?
It is a hardcover too.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Because I definitely need it.
Yeah, you can get it, and you can. It's also, you can get it from the website. You can get it from the campaign. You can get it from anywhere.
Yeah, folks. Like you can get all of this. You can get it all together, and it sounds like it's probably all going to ship around the same time as Silver Volume 2. Is that the kind of the gist I got, or are you going to ship?
No,
will you ship it before?
The Palomino 2 and 3 are gonna ship very quickly. Within a couple of months, they'll be in your mailbox. As well with the Silver number 1 and the Rosalind. The Silver 2 will ship separately in October.
Okay. So yeah, well, that's cool. So you don't have to wait as long. That's awesome. And then you got some gorgeous prints here too. I love these so much. I love his clothes too. I love everything about this book. I'm just going to gush about it. But the dry cleaner, like adding that little bit of humor just every now and then when you need it. And then his partner who like owns the restaurant, like when they're picking out the garish, ridiculous clothing that he's going to wear on this date. He hasn't had a date in a while, and he's got these monster ridiculous shirts. I mean, like just like Hawaiian style button down times 10, just ridiculous. And I love that too. Like when they're picking out that stuff is very, very good, like control over the tone and how you want your audience to feel as the story progresses.
A lot of that stuff goes back to the feature animation kind of training. Like when I worked at Disney many years ago, they used to train us, like we'd be in the story room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be pitching something, and the execs would always say, our movies cost $1 million to make. Is the minute you just pitched me worth $1 million?
Oh,
right?
wow.
So that was like, that's the thing you're up against, and you're trained to think that way. So whether it's $1 million of action, like the bathroom fight, or whether it's $1 million of like, it's an emotional moment that the emotion of it is worth $1 million, whatever it is, right? So, but it's always chasing, like, not doing something that is pedestrian, but just doing something that's just like, okay, that's the idea. How far can I go with this idea without breaking it, but making sure it is the strongest version of that idea? So that's the thing you can always train to chase,
Well, you're doing more than chasing it. You're catching it and caging it and controlling it, baby. Like you're nailing it. You really are nailing it. And I, like everybody listening, you have to get this book. Like I know, like, I know when we did Noir November on the show, and I know a lot of my audience was pretty stoked about like how we were kind of talking. We talked a lot about Ed and Sean, and we're kind of rereading some books, and we did some Twitter Spaces, and talked about some of our favorite noir pieces and stuff, and like everybody was pretty into it, and like you guys will love this. It's so good. It's so fresh. You know the. I love that it's like it's neo-noir, right? But it's still, you know, we're still like 40 years back, right? So it's like we're in the 80s, we're in this fun crazy time. Uh and then yeah, it's full of charm and distrust, and it's greasy, and it's visceral, and it's violent, and it's everything you want in an awesome fucking comic book, folks. Like you need to hop on it. And yeah, like I said, I'm so excited to dive into Silver. Like I flipped through the art looks good. I love like your panel, like the way you do layouts and stuff is so sick, dude. Like and then listening to you talk about it makes me even more excited, because I like you have like a really cool knack for genre fiction, right? So like seeing like having this new narrative where you're blending like pulpy comics and adventure and horror too, as well, with the vampires. And I think, what is like Sinkovich's quote on the back? Okay, so it's bold and juicy. Tim Sale, rest in peace. A dynamic, thrill-filled story, really fun ride. The comic book Ben quote, though, there may not be a better original vampire comic. And that, I know this is a little bit older now, but like, you know, vampires have been made cool again, right? Like we've got Bloodstained Teeth, we've got Philadelphia. There's a lot of pretty rad vampire books out, and so I'm always excited for vampire comics. I get a little burned out with them in the movies sometimes, but it's funny in this medium, they kind of shine, right? It's different.
And I think like they're also in Silver, it's really a different take on vampires.
Nice.
Right? It's the fact that it's kind of connected to the Bram Stoker kind of lore, right? So you have that touchstone, but then from then on, I've kind of, you know, continued the story in the future, in the past, on this, you know, and it becomes this whole world. That's why I was saying it's kind of this world that is very deep and multi-dimensional that you kind of get into, and it just becomes this whole universe that it feels like it takes you somewhere. That's what I like to do, whether it's LA in the 80s or this pulp world of the 1930s. I really try to take you somewhere and really take that world super seriously in its consistency and its texture and its tone, as you said, you know, and just trying to just create an experience, you know.
Yeah. What is the phrase? I love it. It's, when you take them to Cowboy Town, when you kick the shit out of someone, that's one of my new, like, so Ryland Grant has a book too. He's been on my show a couple times, and I thought the phrase was funny initially, but it ended up kind of like, I really appreciated the violence in it. Like these gangsters beat up this dude, this college athlete. They beat him with a baseball bat and cripple him for life, right? Ruin his potential career. And he always mentions it as like, they put the wood to me, and I'm a sick motherfucker, right? So it makes me giggle too, because it's just like, you know, could be dirty, but I'm like, man, like it's such a simple, one of those hard-boiled phrases, right? That's like it contains a lot of like curtness and violence and obscenity just within this little phrase. And I felt like that the Cowboy Town, like, oh my God, I wish I was still a bouncer reading this, so that like when college kids piss me off, I could be like, you want to fucking go to Cowboy Town, boy? Like, oh, I want to go back in time.
It depends on me, honestly. Like, it's just like, honestly, you know, it's funny. Like, I heard a friend of mine just say just say those words in a completely different context that had nothing to do with it. It was just like, you know, somebody was wearing a hat or something, you know what I mean? And I was like, and it stayed with me. And then when came to this thing where she's, because it's the daughter, right, who's like trying to understand why her dad kind of beat up a bunch of guys, this one guy in the past, is he the one who killed the mom or not, or whatever? And she's like, you know, are you telling me you took that fucking guy to, you know, Cowboy Town for no fucking reason at all? You know what I mean? So it was just like, because that's the beauty of noir, is inventing your own language in a certain way.
Yeah. So shout out to John for the great emoji. Thanks for tuning in, John. But yeah, that is interesting too, because it's like another element that makes this genre so hard to succeed in. Because the competition is so great, right? But on top of that, you have to, you really have to know the genre and appreciate it and love it to kind of nail it right, and to make your characters complex and not one dimensional, while simultaneously appearing one dimensional, right? Like you gotta, like you said, like there's this armor, and we gotta work to get through it, and readers have to progress in the narrative to get through it, and look, readers have to look for little signs, little kinks in that armor to kind of like weasel our thought process into and figure these out, and then on top of that, like inventing your own language, changing dialogue while still making the dialogue sound natural. Like it's
Right.
not like these people talk like cavemen and weirdos, right? But there's
That's right.
definitely a vibe, and it's different, but it still sounds human. And so just like
That's
how
right.
the hell do you do it? Like teach me the ways. I would love to like tell me all your secrets, Stefan, so I can steal them.
Well, I knew, like, honestly, a lot of it is you have to get in the zone, right?
Yeah.
It's just, I think at the end of the day, it boils down to truth in storytelling,
Hmm.
which is that you can't, like there's a few books on writing that I, foundational to me. One of them is Stephen King's On Writing.
Yeah.
And so, like one of his things, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't even know if the phrase itself is in there, but he's saying it one way or the other. Is that great art is not great? That art is discovered. It's not decided. Meaning that I'm not one to kind of at the head. When I'm starting a story, kind of deciding kind of artificially what is going to be exactly, even what characters necessarily look like or whatever. I just have an idea, I just follow it, and I let it kind of shape itself, and kind of the truth kind of comes to the surface. Then I double back, and I just make sure everything is consistent. And I think that it's the same with the voice of the characters, right? At the beginning, they're going to sound a little bit more generic, and the more you kind of just let it happen and just try to be in their shoes and not trying to go like, what am I trying to say with this or whatever, but just be them and trying to react and respond to what's happening. After a certain amount of time, you kind of get dialed into their voice, and then
Wow.
you know it, and it just starts to come out more human, more credible, more unique, more them, right? And then you have to go back and, oh, now I know who this is. So then you go back to the beginning, and then you kind of, now trying to like write it before you lose the
So you may actually go back to like previous scenes and alter dialogue as you get to know these characters better.
Right. And that's the beauty of it, is by writing it and drawing it, is that I see every iteration as just a better performance of the same thing.
Okay.
Like, so I have an idea, and I go, okay, I think, oh, I got it, right? And then you start writing the scenes, and you realize like, okay, well, that was just an idea. Actually, I need to up my game to actually write these scenes, and you write those scenes the best way that you can. And at that point, it feels like, yeah, that's it. I'm fully satisfied that this is the best performance of that material. And then you draw it, and first, I rough out the entire book, or at least half the book or whatever, in like rough layout that feels more like storyboards and stuff like that, which and as I'm doing this, page after page, I'm putting in the dialogue that's in the script, and as I'm doing that, I'm like, oh, this feels false now. Like the true thing that is this, it's just, and I'm not even mentally verbalize the process, right? It's just like, I'm just like, and then, and so I end up having the whole book laid out with the dialogue that's already through the process of laying it out, and the storytelling sort of finding itself. It's already, upgraded the dialogue, right? And then I do the final pages. And as I do the final pages, once they're fully done in color and stuff, and they go back into the file, replacing the layout, then clearly the dialogue is clamoring to be polished again, right? Because either like you feel like, oh no, something when I was drawing it, like there's a little something in the expression that came to me that felt right as I was drawing it, which means that now I should be saying it more like this, or like, oh, you should not apologize here, you should do this, or here you should apologize. You know what I'm saying? It's
Mm-hmm.
just like the more you, it's like a scene. It's like being, it's all, it's like acting. To me, writing is improv in slow motion, and everything else that I do is improv in slow motion. And then you finally do the final performance, and then curtains, and you're done.
Wow. Now, so when you have this much control over a project, right? Because you're doing everything here, and you get that you get that ability to go back and alter lines and alter scenes and do all that at your own time, right? What is it like switching gears and moving on to a project like Marvel's What If that you're working on, where the team is massive and you're working with so many different people and you have so many moving parts? Like, do are you is that an easy switch, or does like working on your solo projects, does it like spoil you, and then you go back to the big studio and you're just like, what am I doing? Oh my god, these fucking people.
Yeah, no, I think actually I've had like an amazing time working
Awesome.
with Marvel, and because the thing too is that you're talking about people who, like a group, collectively as a group, right? They've made what, 30 movies by now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
talk about knowing your characters and being on the inside of it and knowing who they are and what they would do, what they would not do, and stuff like that. So working there is working for a studio who really knows what they're doing. So that's really great. Then, but then for what you're saying, it kind of balances it out, because like the flip side of doing everything yourself is the anxiety of like, am I going nuts here? Am I going off the deep end or what? You know what I mean? And so you're like the first and last line of defense. So that's a little bit nervous making.
Okay.
But and so then when you're working with and then yes, of course, when you're on your own, you have full creativity, if you
Yeah.
will. It's you but when you work with in the studio situation, what you get from it is you work with a lot of amazing people.
Nice.
And I think everything that I've learned artistically on any level, I've learned kind of working with or for or next to just amazing writers, artists. You were mentioning color earlier, and color has become one of my favorite things to do. I'm having a blast with it.
I can tell.
Yeah, I'm just loving it. But that's probably the last thing I picked in my career as a skill too, because like I- as an animator, you don't really do color. As a director, art directors, stuff like. So I was never the one painting anything for a living. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I've spent years uh, um, working with amazing artists, amazing painters, amazing production designers, art directors, and watching them, you know, uh, 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 paint, stuff for the movies, and always in that conversation that is about storytelling. Is it working? Is it effective? Is it
Hmm.
is it achieving the goal, right? And so if it is, then you go like, wow, why is it working? Yeah, I really love this and this, or I'm keeping this in mind for the next time, right? Or if it's not working, then it's even more interesting, because then you have to ask yourself, okay, this is not quite telling the story, or this is not quite giving me the emotion that I should be having right now. Why is that, right? And then you work with everybody, and then you find what the truth is there, and then th- that's what I'm getting from like all those years of working at the studios, is just it's a constant learning um, process, and also the very humbling thing that there's always a better, there's, you work at Disney, you work at DreamWorks, you work at, Marvel, considering part of Disney, but I worked at Sony for a long time. There's a lot of, it's the thing where like you're, like let's say you're a musician or an athlete, and but I was the best in my hometown. Yeah, but you're in but you're in the you're in the
You're in big boy land now.
whatever it is, right? It's just like it's everybody's good, right? And so when you work at these places, the bench is so deep
Hmm.
that if you don't use that opportunity to a keep it, don't keep your ego in check,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll do it for you because again it's so amazing, and b but as an opportunity to learn and grow from all these collaborations, that then I would be missing out,
No wonder your stuff is so good because I feel like I feel like it's easy to like find success and get caught up in your ways, right? And then your productions become formulaic because that formula works, right? So like why change it? If like I can make this product and people are going to buy it and I can make it the same way. But I love that. I love what you're saying. Like I work with all these people. Like why wouldn't I try to learn from all these people? Why wouldn't I keep experimenting and try and make my stories better? Like that's so inspiring. That's so I mean, just because that's just part of what getting older is, right? We get older, we get
Yeah.
grumpier, our body hurts in
Right.
weird ways, and it's just like I don't want to change. I don't want to change for you people, but sometimes we gotta, right? So sometimes you gotta play it fast and loose and weird and take a bit of risks, right? And then and like look what you said, like coloring was one of the last things that you decided to learn, and then you don't just learn it, you fucking master it, you madman. Like oh my god, like it's so beautiful, and the things that it brings out of Palomino, and like I said, the life that it gives to those pages. Seeing your black and white art in silver. If Palomino was black and white, it would still be great, and it would also serve the noir purpose, right?
Yeah,
Like
it
the
totally works as
the
well.
dichotomy. It's either good or bad. It's either going to fail or not. You know, it's very either or. There's not a lot of gray, well there is, but you got to like dig it out, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
and so like that would have served a narrative purpose as well. But yeah, the deciding to color it, I think was a really smart move, and I think the pages look great on my tablet, right? Like I love hardcovers. I love holding books. I like real physical things. But because of what I do, I read digitally a lot for review copies, advanced reader copies, and stuff like that. So I have a nice tablet so that it's easy to read these things on. So I got like a 12.5-inch Samsung tablet,
Nice.
and it's got that OLED screen, right? So like you crank the brightness up a little bit, and colors just pop like nobody's business, and that's one of the best things about digital comics. And so that was one of the like every page of this, I was like, man, wow. But I have a feeling like the printed. It's gonna look good in print too. Like so,
It does, and that was one of the most interesting. Like, because as I was saying, for years I'd worked with like great art directors, painters, at the studio, and so I little by little, I picked up what they're doing. After a while,
Mhm.
but then when you come to coloring for a book, which is a physical object, which is, excuse me, going through a different industrial process. The color is, it's inks so so you have to technically do it differently. You can't just take a nice JPEG and just send it to a printer, and it's not going to come out good. It's going to be a problem. So that's because I'm a curious person. I like to learn stuff and learn more about everything, and just how to do color for the printing process so that it does look awesome. That's something I was really keen to learn, and I'm still learning, but I feel like, and then the first book came out great, printing wise. So, but
Nice.
that it's a thing in and of itself that I think was an extra. As soon as you create a physical object as opposed to just an image,
Mm-hmm.
then it goes from square to cube, and exponentially new problems need to be addressed that didn't exist if it's just an image on the screen.
Okay. How do you create? Do you work digitally, or are you pen to paper? Like how do you work?
I 99% digital.
Okay.
So when I so for the this book, for instance, So I will do if you know a lot of either the layouts either in Photoshop, just drawing, or in Clip Studio. I also use a lot of, that's something I've done for this book a lot that I had not done to that extent before, is create some CG sets, CG reference, where I
Oh,
build
cool.
all the locations in CG so that, if I'm doing like it, 5-page sequence in that kitchen, which allows me to really have the characters and their acting and the way they're engaging the space and the way they're moving around the place being really like that's what I think gives it the cinematic feel, is that I'm really using the scenic space in a way that you would see in a movie, and of course translated in a way that
That's
works on the
crazy.
page. And so for that and for the specificity of the world, I've built all those CG sets that I use as reference, and then which lens am I shooting them with and stuff like that. So there's a lot of movie magic that goes into like the conception of the so I create that CG reference in SketchUp. Then I bring all that stuff into Clip Studio. This is where I redraw everything and ink everything, and then color will be in Photoshop, uh, um, and then you assemble the book in InDesign, and that's basically, and then you export a PDF, and that's what goes to the printer or to
Wow.
the publisher if you're working with a different publisher or whatever it is. So it's that sort of, you need this suite of applications, if you will, like a little workflow that um,
So with your animation background, like you said, you can like render these scenes and like build digital objects to manipulate and think
yeah.
about like different viewpoints. Like, most comic book creators don't have that ability, or if they have, no one's ever talked about it on my show. And I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of creators now, and like that's so cool. Like, and I feel like that's like a kind of a unique trait to have, coming from from like your day job to you making these passion projects, right? Like, and I'm maybe that's like this. I can't talk. That's why these feel so different. These, because it moves like manga. It flies, man. It grabs it grabs you by your pants and drags you like kicking and screaming. But you're not even really kicking and screaming. You're like, please drag me through this whole fucking book. I don't care, because it's a wild ride. And but like there's just something special about it. Like I read a lot. I say this a lot. People will probably like think I'm full of shit, but like, I also pick my guests carefully, and I don't have bad talent on the show, because it's like, why would I do that? That's not helping anybody. But like when I read a lot of comics, and especially like with a lot of Kickstarter work, and there's so much on Kickstarter right now, right? And like some of it's great, some of it's medium, some of it's like, really, like this needs a little bit of work still. And but even like the indie comics on the press list and stuff I get, like this just felt really different. It actually felt, I was very shocked that it was like releasing on Kickstarter, right? It felt like it should have like the Image brand on it, or Boom, or like one of these bigger indie publishers. Like it really did. And I like that. I like that you took it to Kickstarter, but with Silver, you release it through your own press, and Silver Volume 2 is coming out through Dark Planet too, right?
No, so the four, so all the books we do through as Dark Planet, we do through Kickstarter, where we have a
Oh,
fan
okay.
we have, right. So the silver books came through Kickstarter, all that stuff.
Oh,
But then for the first run, then we reprint. I mean,
okay.
but so silver was excuse me. So silver, for its until the series was complete, we were releasing it through Dark Planet, at the comic shops, at conventions, on the website, everywhere, right?
Okay.
And so at some point, you reach like the limits of, once you've reprinted like several, a bunch of times, and it like the just the cash flow and the reach of it just becomes too much. At some point, it becomes too big.
Okay.
Like there's a magic number of certain tens of thousands of books that once you've sold that on your own, you're bumping against like how much you're going to put on your credit card and and
Mhm.
stuff, right?
Gotcha.
So at that point is when you go like, okay, I'm gonna make this deal with this bigger publisher and we're gonna work together, and then they can take this thing that has really made its mark and its footprint in the world, in the indie world, and then you can do you can take it to the next level. And so typically before I do that, I like to have had the full series out.
Okay.
That way it exists, it is what it is. And then yeah, and so we're doing the same with Palomino, which is Palomino is still in this phase of its life
Okay.
where all the first runs are through Kickstarters. The second runs are self the sales, blah blah blah, and we're it'll be at comic shops, it'll be at conventions, it'll be on our website, and then in a year or so. Or two, once that cycle is complete and the 4 books are out, then we probably will be talking to partners to just now. All right, now you put this everywhere books are sold and stuff like that.
Okay.
But the thing is, there's something very that's I love the focus of having one title and being or two, like one title at a time and being able
Mhm.
to push it, right? Like for instance, by the end of the like, unfortunately, I mean, with COVID was of course horrible on many
Mhm.
many levels, but like it affected us in a way in the sense that we had such a big convention operation going on, like we would do like 10 sometimes 15 big shows every year with a big booth,
Yeah.
and you know we would sell, and so through we would sell 800 trades
Wow.
in one show, show after show after show after show.
And you guys
So
lost
very
that. Yeah.
quickly you end up selling more books through that distribution channel than most indies sell anywhere else, and you're still in full control of it,
Wow.
so there's really something beautiful about that. And then you have direct contact with the readers, which is the other thing I love about the way I'm doing comics, because when you work for the studios, like the thing that is you're in LA, you do the movie comes out, did he make $1 billion, did he lose $1 billion, you
Mhm.
don't know, you don't see any of it anymore. So it's just like, but you don't have that direct connection. But when you are on the convention circuit and you are shaking like I did maybe over the last 10 years, shook 150,000 hands and talk
Wow.
story with people, and they tell you why they love the book, what it means to them, how and why, and so on and so forth. And then it honestly changed, it transformed my entire relationship with storytelling,
Cool.
from like a sort of self actualizing thing I'd done since I was a kid to a completely different thing of I'm putting things out there that actually mean something to people, and then it's theirs. It's not even mine anymore. It's theirs to do, to appropriate and do what it becomes part of the every and it's the same with the movies, right? Like Iron Giant, for instance, is one that people would come to me. Sure, if I had like a nickel for anyone who told me it's their favorite movie, as I always say, I could pay for the
You'd be
sequel.
living in a golden palace.
I could pay for the second movie, but beyond that, people come to you and say, "Hey, this terrible thing happened in our family, and they're going to betray any secrets because it's all done in confidence,
Mhm.
in trust, and the Iron Giant is the movie that saw us through. And when we
Wow.
were back on track, we rewatched it together. It meant everything, And people tell you stuff, and it makes you literally choke up, right? Or
Yeah.
some people will tell you, hey, this movie, and it's like they will literally name the worst movie you ever worked on, which I'm not going to name either, but the worst, well, the one that you're like, why did I ever work on this? And they will say, hey, man, this movie saved me from suicide or whatever,
Wow.
you know? And so, like, just going to the cons and really working the cons and really meeting people everywhere across the country, you know, blue states, red states, purple states, all states, you know, but you meet people,
Yeah.
and it gives you a completely different appreciation of this sharing process that we have together, and that's what these books are about. You know, that's it's a connection. It's we're all human, and we're all sort of like, for 5 minutes we're all walking through, we walk all sorts of walks of life, but we're walking through the same shoes of this one character, and if
Yeah.
there's truth to that character, then we all feel it because we're all human, you know. And that's, you know, it's the antidote to seeing people as the other, you know. It's just like, no, it's not about, you know, like Chuck Jones, right, the great animator Chuck Jones, used to say that the trick to learn how to draw anatomy, because, you know, always say when you learn anatomy, people always say you have to go do live model, you know, of people, but also go to the zoo, draw the lions, draw the, you know. And he was always saying, the point of that is not to understand how everything's different. The point of that is to understand how everything's the same.
Oh, wow.
And then you see, oh, but there's a slightly different flavor, but it's the same.
Yeah.
And deep down, I think if you meet enough people, the point is to understand, yeah, we're all different, but guess what? We're all the same. Let's reconnect to that, you know.
Yeah. Finding those like niche universalities, right? Like that, and that again, not to just keep lifting you up. I don't want to give you too high an ego after you leave Blake's Buzz and ruin you forever. But that's a part of your character writing, is you do that, right? It's just like, I'm not a musician, right? I'm not. I used to be a bouncer, but I definitely couldn't take on 4 henchmen in a parking lot. I would lose. I've lost several fights as a bouncer against smaller men, and you know, like if I would have been in that bathroom, I would have been fucking on the floor when the sink broke, right? Like I would be like, all right, you can go, dude. I'm done. But you know, it is like, it's like you mentioned, you can find these little elements to connect with. It's that's how great like superhero writing is too, right? Like Superman. Like, how do we relate to Superman? Oh, you give him, you showcase his faults, you showcase his vulnerabilities, and even though he's not human, he has human like emotions, and he connects with us on human levels, and then we connect with him on a human level, and then all of a sudden the superhero becomes then more than an icon. It becomes like a tangible being and spirit that we can connect with. You do that with your characters, even without superhero, you know, abilities and stuff, and it's wonderful, like the curiousness and brashness of youth that we see in the daughter, right? And like, my mom's still very much alive, but I've lost people, right? Now I can attach myself to that loss, and that distance you put between yourself and other people when you get low, right? And we see that, we see all these little things that we connect with these characters, and they make them more real. Brian, thank you for tuning in. I always love this. Like, I'm so glad you're checking it out. Brian's a big noir fan too. I knew he would love that. But yeah, but yeah, man, it's so, you're just so damn talented, Stephan. Like, I can't.
Well, let me tell you. Okay, so in case you're afraid for my ego, let me tell you something. Like, when I finished animation school, so many years ago. So I was starting to do, you know, internships and stuff like that. And I was working on, my internship was on Babar the elephant, right? And at the end of the internship, the guy took me aside. He was like, everybody can go. You're great, great, great. And then he keeps saying, do you mind staying behind? And he takes me aside and he goes, hey man, I'm just telling you this as a friend. You might want to find a different line of work, because you have no talent whatsoever for this, natural affinity for this whatsoever. And I'm just like, whoa. But so, and you know what's funny is, like, you know, after not giving them names obviously for this type of stuff, but like after having a chance to meet, become friends slash work, go pencil to pencil with a lot of people who were my heroes artistically and stuff, all of them had the exact same story. They were told always at some point early on, dude, why are you even trying?
Yeah.
This is not for you. You know what I mean? So I think it's, I don't know. It's just like you gotta have no other sort of like mental option than to go like, no, but wait, but I am doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the resolve, right? Well, I mean, that's part of being a creator. Now, that's intense feedback to get from anybody, but part of being, like a good writer, a good artist, a good creator is when people give you criticism and you can take it, right? When
Right.
now telling you to leave the field and that you have, that's
No,
beyond
it's
criticism. That's
oh my
just
God.
an asshole. But to that, I feel like that's when like if someone can tell you that, and yeah, like I'm sure that wrecked you, right? And it probably took a while to like pick yourself up after that and
A
build
good
yourself back
five
up.
hours.
But I mean, look where you're at now,
Yeah.
and like you should like call that guy and just be like, you should be like, hey, remember me? Look me up on IMDb, and then send him a copy of
Yeah.
Palomino. And be like,
Yeah.
what do you think? What do you think now? You jerk. No.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
crazy, man. I can't believe that. And I mean, like seeing the work you put out now, and like I said, your very impressive resume with just like a lot of iconic animated masterpieces that are out in the world that you've had your hands in the pot in that kitchen. Like I'm so glad you stuck with it. Like I'm so glad you didn't listen to that guy, dude.
Well, but you're also absolutely right that I think this, it's just, I think like many things, you have to be able to hold two completely different ideas that feels like they're opposite, but yet they coexist.
Yeah.
And I think for like, if you want to do art just for your own fulfillment, that's great. You should do it. But if you want to do it in a way that you're interacting with like the expectations of other people,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to at the same time try to stay in touch with your own voice and try to never lose that and stick to your guns.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, you cannot be precious. You have to go like whatever works for the story, whatever it's because the minute you go like, oh, I've done it, it's done, then you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, Stefan, I can't believe we're already over an hour.
Wow.
Like it feels like we've just been chatting for a couple minutes, man. You like your great Palomino, you've swept me up and entranced me, and I've lost all track of time. You're a charming man, and
Well, so are you. It was a great conversation.
well, thank you. I know it's Friday, and I know people probably have stuff to do. I don't. As soon as we get off this, I'm going to go read books and prep for next week's stuff. But the polite host that I am, because I am, if anything, polite. But where's like a good place to find you? Like I know I found you on Twitter, but like do you do like a newsletter or anything? Like where's a good place to keep track of you and like new books and stuff and projects you got coming out?
Yeah, so like I'm gonna say the hub where everything's in there is go to darkplanetcomics.com. And from there you can go to anywhere. But I'm also on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on what the fun thing we're doing on Twitter and Insta right now, like through all the campaign, I'm dropping like one neo-noir.
Yeah, little tidbits. Yeah, I like that.
One image from the book, and that's pretty fun. So yeah, Twitter. I mean, all the social stuff. Facebook also. I'm there. All those things. I'm there. Either Dark Planet is there, and I'm there. Stephan. So you can find me there. But Dark Planet Comics is obviously like the hub.
Okay.
And it's darkplanetcomics.com. And then, of course, right now we're live on Kickstarter. It's called Stephan Franck's Palomino Volumes 2+3. And for if you've missed the first one, it's in there too. You can get it from this campaign. And we're actually trying to reach like this first goal and, just secure that today, because we're inching very close to it. So if everybody wants to jump in and be like my next favorite person, then you guys go for it.
Yeah, you're just shy of 200 backers. You're at 198 backers. You got 20 days to go, and you're at $12,845 out of $15,000. You're gonna fund. But yeah, it's Brian. Thank you for the kind words, man. Yeah, this has been a great chat. Definitely, and that's one of the great things about doing these. We do these live, and you never know what's going to happen, right? Especially when you're talking to me, anything can happen. And but everybody's going to be able to go back and watch this later. You can share the YouTube link with your friends. Like this will be like on YouTube, like any other video, and you can just listen to Stephan talk about noir and just being a master at the genre. He's so humble, but he's doing so many things, not just right, but magnificently. I got you one backer, baby. So it wasn't a total waste of your time.
Thank you so much, man.
What's up, Jay? Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, man, everybody needs to check this book out, and also check out Silver. I'm very excited for Silver. Just after reading Palomino, I can't wait to dive into more of Stephan's work. I still haven't watched Marvel What If. I'm sorry, I'm not a perfect host. There's so much like content on Disney Plus. It's hard to stay on top of things. But I have wanted to watch. I think there's 2 seasons out now, or is the second season coming?
There's 1 season. So
okay.
I supervised the animation of the first season, and I'm directing new episodes now.
Very exciting. Well, Stephan, open invitation, man. Anytime you ever want to come back, I'd love to have you. Especially if you want to do like a spooky Halloween Silver episode when Volume 2 comes out, man.
Well, yeah, it'll be perfect, because that's when the second book's coming out. So there you go.
Yeah, we get. It's how we market, baby. It's how we're here to talk shop and sell books. But no, right. This was such a pleasure. You are a very, very cool guy, and again, I love your art, and I love your books and your stories, and I'm so glad you stumbled into my radar with this wondrously noir narrative.
Thank you.
Everybody, check out Stephan Franck's Palomino. Volumes 2 and 3 are on there right now. If you haven't been there before, you can get 1, 2, and 3. You can get all these books we've talked about through add-ons, or you can go to his shop if you can't wait, and you can get Silver and Rosalind right now. You could even get Volume 1 of Palomino if you're itching for that neo-noir goodness, which I know some of you might be. So yeah, check that out. Give him a follow. I'm super stoked to see what other projects you got coming, and yeah, man, I'd say good luck on your Kickstarter, but you're off to a really great start, and you got 20 days to not make much money. So I feel like if you got hopefully get some stretch goals or something cool going for you. You put that work in, you deserve it, and fuck your teacher from when you were younger, dude, because I've never heard someone be more wrong in my life.
Thank you.
You are welcome. All right. So unless you got anything left to say, I'm going to play the music and send us out.
No, we're good to go. Everybody have a great weekend. And yeah, man, thanks again for having me on this show. It was such a real pleasure.
No, it's pleasure was all mine. I assure you. Everybody who tuned in, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with other people. I can't quit you. You can't quit me. We'll be here on YouTube again and again and again. Remember to love more, hate less, read comics, and don't just read them. Go to Kickstarter and back them, because this one is one you don't want to miss. I promise you. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
It's Blake's Buzz Live.